On March 11, 1959, A Raisin in the Sun, a play written by Lorraine Hansberry, directed by Lloyd Richards and produced by Philip Rose and David J. Cogan, performed at Ethel Barrymore Theater in New York City. Hansberry wrote this play to convey a message about what it was like to live as a black family and the challenges and hardships they encountered. The director, writer, and producers of this play were tired of white men having all the opportunities in the Broadway industry and wanted a way to express the difficulties as a black family, so they took a stand and broke racial barriers by creating a daring play which became the first serious African-American drama performed on Broadway. A Raisin in the Sun has received a wide variety of good and bad reviews, but inspired many future plays and African-American playwrights. At the time, some of the most popular plays in Broadway were Lightning, a comedy, and 80's Irish Rose, a romantic drama. Theater in general was dominated by comedies and romantic dramas. On Broadway and in theater in general, the roles of African Americans were almost always criminals or homeless, jobless people. These plays were written, directed, and produced by white men. Writer Lorraine Hansberry countered that by writing A Raisin in the Sun, being the first African American playwright to have a play on Broadway. Lloyd Richards, the director, was also one of the first African American directors to direct a play on Broadway. They countered the roles of African Americans in theater as the story is about different dreams each character has in an African American family. Before A Raisin in the Sun, there were very few plays that were teaching the audiences, especially not plays about the struggles of African Americans. Much of Lorraine Hansberry's inspiration came from her early childhood. Her parents were very involved in the civil rights movement. Her uncle was a professor at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and taught African American studies. Many prominent African American leaders visited Hansberry's family, including Jesse Owens, Langston Hughes, Paul Robeson, and Duke Ellington. The inspiration for A Raisin in the Sun title came from the poem Harlem by Langston Hughes, which had a line that talks about thriving or drying up like a raisin in the sun. The plot came from Hansberry's personal experiences. When Lorraine was 8, her family moved in a restricted white neighborhood. While living in that neighborhood, Hansberry's family was repeatedly threatened by white mobs. Eventually, the Illinois State Court made the Hansberrys move out, but they took the case to the U.S. Supreme Court in the case Hansberry v. Lee. They reversed the decision and opened 30 blocks in restricted white neighborhoods to African Americans. Much of the plot of A Raisin in the Sun was based on the court case to limit restricted white areas. In 1957, Hansberry decided to start writing with the goal of teaching others about the struggles she went through and the struggles thousands of other African Americans were encountering as well. The production of this play was a big risk. It took over a year for the producer, Philip Rose, to raise enough money to put it on, with most of the investors from black families. The makers encountered a multitude of problems during the production, from money problems to finding a cast and crew.
One of the, I'll call them big boys, invested in the show. They said, who wants to see a play about a black family? Come on, who does? And so as we went looking for investments and looking for a theater, there was very little sympathy on Broadway for our plight.
Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry, directed by Lloyd Richards and produced by Philip Rose and David J. Cogan, opened at Ethel Barrymore Theater on March 11, 1959 in New York City. The playwright, director, and producers all took a stand by taking a play to Broadway about a black family living in the 1930s and 40s in Chicago, trying to live a happy and normal life, and the challenges and obstacles that they faced along the way. The makers took an enormous risk to put this play on, putting a large amount of time and money into this very risky play. It was considered a bold move to put a play on that was educating the audiences about an unpopular subject. They had no idea if it was going to be popular because it was so different from other plays at the time. Even though they weren't expecting it, it became an instant success. Together, the makers were able to teach many people who had little previous knowledge of black struggles. This is why they felt it was so important to put on this play. Lorraine Hansberry and Lloyd Richards broke the barrier of people who produced plays for Broadway and how African Americans were portrayed. They created a play that was about something that was actually important to them and many others.
Had never been done before. And actually, we were held up in Chicago because the into lost faith in us and held us up. And our gallant producer, Philip Rose, went to battle with them and said no, he wasn't going to dismantle the play. He was going to keep it running until that space opened up. And eventually it opened up, and we came in from Chicago, where we were a hit, and then went to Broadway, and we were immediately a hit.
Raisin in the Sun received many positive reviews from both critics and audiences and was performed over 530 times in 1 year. Audiences and critics liked how it was funny and interesting, but still showcased the difficulties this African-American family faced and was full of truth and relevance. The play was particularly well received by the African-American community. The play truly expressed the family's struggles and dreams as a black family living in the 1930s and 40s. This had never been seen by white audiences. When the play first came out, press agent Jim Proctor, who had participated in the making of many prestigious Broadway plays, told the producer Philip Rose the audience wasn't enthusiastic enough and they should postpone or possibly cancel the show because it wasn't going to be successful. He was proven wrong months later when the New York Drama Critics Circle Award awarded A Raisin in the Sun the best play of 1959. Some critics were upset by this because they felt that this award was given to the play because its director and writer were black, and it was being given out of pity and liberal bias. Other critics said the audiences were enjoying the play without fully understanding it, and while it was a benefit for the makers, it was unfair to the other plays that were nominated for the award. 2 years later, A Raisin in the Sun was made into a movie, which quickly became popular with audiences. The movie made the story even more recognized and popular throughout all communities.
John Chapman, the drama critic for the New York Daily News, wrote that he has great respect for your play, but he feels perhaps that part of the acclaim may be a sentimental reaction to the fact that you are a Negro and one of the few Negroes ever to have written a good Broadway play.
I would imagine that if I were given the award because they wanted to give it to a Negro, it would be the first time in the history of this country that anyone had ever been given anything for being a Negro. I don't think it's a very complimentary assessment of an honest piece of work.
A Raisin in the Sun inspired many future Broadway plays about black lives. It has inspired many African-American playwrights such as Nataki Shange, Susan Laurie Parks, Lynn Nottage, Cateri Hall, and Lydia Diamond, and many more who felt inspired by its relevance. Many people were inspired by A Raisin in the Sun, and in 2006, Clybourne Park came out based off an inspiration of A Raisin in the Sun. Many more plays continue to show truth about black families through the theater community. Many years later, in 2008, a second movie was made that made the story even more recognized and attracted more people to the theater community that normally weren't interested in theater.
Raisin in the Sun has just taken the theatrical season by storm. It's a raging commercial hit. It's won the Drama Critics Prize. It's your first play, Lorraine.
I think there exists in American life at this moment some sort of hunger for even the most rudimentary kind of affirmation.
Today, the Broadway play is still relevant and still being performed. A Raisin in the Sun is a play that broke racial barriers while teaching America about African American struggles. Its scenes of struggle and obstacles within African American family are still appreciated today. A Raisin in the Sun will always be remembered as a play that changed American theater forever.
It dealt with abortion issues. It dealt with not only the racial issue, quite naturally, but it dealt with women's rights issues. It dealt with all the different issues that are still relevant today. And it was coming out, these issues were intelligent issues coming out of black people's mouths, so that their daily existence was relatable to everyone.
And I'm feeling good.